Let's get into our first topic now, though. Should wealthy families pay more for their energy? Get your calls in 0207 862 2222. Energy bills are going up partly because of our move to net zero and that big push to improve things. The energy regulator, Ofgem, is concerned about how it's going to impact low-income consumers. So it's announced a major review of how it allocates costs. I just want to try to explain why poorer households are struggling, why they're affected the way they are. Let's have a look at this. Look, you've got two households here. Over here on the left, you've got a one-bedroom flat, OK? Over here, we've got a four-bedroom house. Typically, the person in the one-bedroom flat is more likely to earn less than the person in the big house over there. But regardless of that, currently, they both pay the same standing charge, which we can average at about 300 quid. Here, that charge makes up half the bill. However, over in the four-bed house, it is a tiny proportion. It's so much harder then for the person who lives in the flat over here to reduce their bill proportionately by reducing their usage. More of that bill is this fixed standing charge that won't change. And here's the kicker. If that charge then results in infrastructure improving and the cost per kilowatt hour, that usage charge then comes down, it's going to benefit that person less than it is the person with the big house that maybe earns more because they are using so much less than they are. Russ, this is what we call the poverty premium, isn't it? If you earn less, you pay more. How does that work?
In principle, I don't agree with it at all. The crux of the matter is that we pay too much for our energy because of green subsidies, the way the government is going. Instead of pulling our own oil and gas out the North Sea, we pay Norway 40 billion a year to buy theirs that comes from the North Sea. I mean, every court has a jester, and the court of Keir Starmer has Ed Miliband, who, to me, is out of his depth, an absolute buffoon. The key to this, and this is the most important point, is why do we pay so much for energy, particularly since the Russian invasion of Ukraine? We are a country that allows city traders to speculate on futures for commodities in the interest of making money. And that drives up the price as we go forward in the future, irrespective of what Ofgem does. They are actually controlling the price of fuel.
Well, actually, it's because the price of our electricity is dictated by the price of gas, the wholesale price of gas.
Yes,
so
which is driven by the traders.
I mean, today we were talking this morning about how now half of our energy, of our electricity, is made by renewables. That's about energy independence, isn't it? So we don't have to rely on Norway or Vladimir Putin or anybody. We can do it ourselves now and bring these prices down.
We have the means of bringing them down by accessing gas and oil from the North Sea. Solar power in this country, and I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying this, does not contribute massively over a yearly period to renewables. We rely on wind power. And if the wind doesn't blow, then we don't have as much renewable energy. And all those big windmills that Donald Trump was talking about, after about 10 years, they need to be replaced, and that costs a fortune. It's just a nutty way of trying to be a trailblazer on energy that this government is trying to do. And in fairness, the previous government was pretty up there with them as well on this. You know, to me, it's all about the price of energy. And as a consumer, and all your viewers who are consumers and going, oh God, here comes another energy bill, we all want to know why our bills are so expensive compared to the EU, compared to America.
We're talking about how, I mean, the crucial bit with this question is how that burden is allocated and whether if you earn less, you should pay less. I just wonder, Paula, whether simplicity and clarity is really important here, that I know that I'm paying the same as the person next door for my energy. That makes it, across the board, a level playing field, and we're all in it together.
Well, we're not all in it together, and I think this graph is really helpful in explaining, in very simple terms, how we're not all in it together. How can it be that somebody in a one-bedroom property is having to pay exactly the same stand-in charge that somebody in a four-bedroom property does? And when we talk about the stand-in charge, we are talking about how the company functions, the fixed costs of that company. Well, how is it fair that I have to pay the same fixed costs in my one-bedroom flat for the same fixed costs in a four-bedroom house? That just doesn't make sense.
Well, I suppose because you're paying for things you can't see. You're not paying for what you see in your flat itself. You're paying for the infrastructure, which means everybody gets reliable electricity supply, gets a reliable gas supply, and those things cover all of us and do improve things for all of us. Therefore, that's why we need to all pay the same.
But in terms of that supply, for example, can you imagine if council tax was calculated on the same basis?
Well, they plan to do that.
That just wouldn't work. And so what we need to think about here, and ultimately what we need to think about here, is how can we help those less well off to be able to afford their heat? How can we help those less well off to be able to afford their gas?
Agree.
And the way that we can do that, and I think it's excellent that this review is taking place, because one of the ways that we can do that is by looking at the standing charge, is by looking at the fixed cost and saying, well, actually, is this fair when Russ, who lives in the four-bedroom home, can clearly afford more in terms of the standing charge?
Yeah, if we worked out income tax on this basis, and let's face it, these are unavoidable things for most people. We have to pay energy bills.
Exactly.
We need gas and electricity. If we worked income tax out on that basis, Russ, you'd be going mad about it, wouldn't you?
But not necessarily.
Called regressive.
I think that people should pay the tax that they're meant to pay. What I have a fundamental disagreement with is that across the whole of our society, it's happening more and more and more. Is it going to be a wealth tax? We're going to change council tax. If somebody has done well, is doing well, that whoever it may be, energy companies or government, want to take a bit more off them when they're already paying quite high tax bills.
Why do we see
How
it
can that
way?
be fair? It's the politics of envy.
Why
Again.
can't we see it? Why do we have to see it as a punishment? Why can't we see it as a duty to help each other out?
I understand what you're saying, Matt, but I think a lot of people would. They go, well, hang on a minute. The crux of the matter, apart from the pricing, is somebody somewhere has sat down and said, right, the natives are getting a bit restless about all these high bills, and Ofgem, OK, we're going down 7%, haven't we, in July? But it'll go up again probably in October or whenever the next thing is. How are we going to do something that makes people feel a little bit better about the high bills they're paying? This is masking the problem for me.
OK. Listen, we're going to take a call. Sarah's in Surrey. Sarah, what do you reckon? Should we be charging those who earn more for their energy?
Absolutely not, and I disagree that chart is actually very helpful. We all know that depending on where you live in the country, you are charged differently for gas, electricity and water. What should be fairer to everyone is that utility companies, regardless of where you live, have the same daily standing charge, and then you pay per usage. So if you live in a one-bedroom flat, you will benefit as opposed to someone living in a four-bedroom house. But you shouldn't penalise someone for living in a four-bedroom house on the assumption that they're wealthy. It should boil down to the basic, this is what you pay per day, and then you pay per usage.
OK, so I just want to make sure I'm getting it absolutely straight. You don't mind some people paying less, but you don't think other people should pay more. Is that right?
I think you should pay for your usage.
Just for your usage? No standing charges at all?
So your daily standing charge should be the same whether you live in London.
That's where we're at.
Or whether you live in Scotland, and that's not the same.
No, it's not.
There is a differential across the country as to where you live.
And Sarah, I think I'm right in saying that. I think I'm right in saying that in Surrey you're probably better off than most of the rest of the country.
In what way?
Let's have a look. I think we've got a map that might come in quite useful here. Let's ping it up. This is standing charges across the country. If we look down, I'm going to say Surrey is probably in the light blue bit at the bottom there. Yearly charge for electricity usage, that's going to be under 175 quid. Whereas, Sarah, if you were living up in Scotland or North Wales or up in the northeast, for instance, you could end up paying way more, over 200 quid for your standing charge. So you're the winner at the moment.
I don't know where you've got those figures from, because I literally have just renegotiated my utility bills.
Okay.
And it's nowhere near that.
Okay,
but
so
what I'm saying, to make it fair to everyone, whether you're on a low income, whether you're on a high income, you pay the same standing charge regardless of where you live, and then you pay for your own usage.
That's where we are right. That's where we are right now, Sarah. And what I was trying to point out with what we were saying before is that usage only gets you so far. You can only reduce your bill by so much. If you're in a 4-bedroom house, cutting your usage in half saves you hundreds, possibly thousands of pounds. If you are here in this one bed, cutting your usage in half only saves you 150 quid. You still got that standing charge at the bottom.
Well, maybe that's when the providers need to look at it as to whether this standing charge is applicable, or actually just base it on usage regardless of where you live in the country.
Okay.
There's a big argument about getting rid of the standing charge, which is higher in some places, lower in others. I'm not quite sure why, but maybe just base the whole thing, to be fair to everyone, on usage.
It's a very interesting point, Sarah. I wonder whether when you get electricity to your new property, and that's going to cost a lot of money to do that, the company say we can't just do that for free, hoping that people are going to use it and that we'll get our money back later on. Very interesting. Thank you so much for your call. Let's take another one. John's in East Yorkshire. John, from that map previously, your standing charge, I'm going to guess, is probably one of the highest in the country, isn't it?
From what that map shows, yes.
Did you realise that?
No, I didn't.
OK.
What I was going to say was the standing charge is for what delivers everything to your property. Whether you're 1-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, you still have that same infrastructure that delivers that gas or whatever to your property.
OK, what's wrong with the idea then, John? Let's look at it this way. A social tariff. We have it for broadband, we have it for water. If we say that if you are on certain means-tested benefits, things like universal credit, we're going to cut your standing charge in half, because that makes it about your ability to pay then.
I'm not means benefit, but I'm not wealthy.
Yeah.
Right? I think the standing charge should be removed and put onto the usage. I'm in a 3-bedroom house, but I'm not wealthy. It's because my children moved away. OK. What do we think about what John's saying? We had a very similar argument with winter fuel, didn't we?
Yeah.
That just above those means-tested benefits, there are lots of people who are still struggling, Paula.
But it's interesting that even though the last two callers have been disagreeing with me, they've actually ultimately been agreeing with me. The standing charge isn't fair. And as I say, it's excellent that we're having this review and that we're discussing this. And ultimately what I would like to see, because I don't mind taking more of the burden. I haven't got a problem if I lived in a 4-bedroom house being told that my standing charge was going to be £400 and the person in the 1-bedroom flat was going to be £250. I haven't got a problem with that. And I'm concerned as a society why we naturally have a problem with that.
Well, I mean, maybe we should make it voluntary and see how many people in that position that you're in will be prepared to do it.
Well, isn't that where the buffoonery comes in?
Not
Russ?
really.
Because clearly there are fixed costs that have to be paid for.
You obviously have a conscience, Paula. How many other people would?
I would...
Unless it's enforced upon you. And I think this is the issue that people have. Not another rule, not another change. But why do they want more money from me? You know, you wouldn't go to a supermarket and buy 5 bananas, but be charged a standing charge for the price of, you know, the lorry that brought it in of 2 bananas, would you?
No, but I do understand, for example, that those who are less well off than me might get a reduced ticket price entrance to the London Dungeons over the summer holidays because they can't afford for their children to go and see those events.
We are going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. It's going to be fascinating. I'll tell you what, we're
moving in together. That's what's going to happen.
When the review publishes its findings, we'll all get back together and see how that works out.